Alrighty. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to get started. Really excited that we're here and that the sound is working and that everyone is here. I've been wanting to talk with Todd and share a coffee chat with you all with him because he is so filled with so much knowledge and such a pleasure to talk to. And I really like that Todd keeps it real. That's a really great trait, in my opinion. So I'm going to go ahead and let Todd introduce himself, and then we'll get started with some of the questions that I have. And if you have any questions at any time, you can always put them in the chat. We'll pause to answer questions as we see them, and then go back to look at questions if we miss any. So go ahead, Todd, tell the people who you are.
Okay, thank you. No echo today. That's great. Um, Todd Libby. I am currently a freelance. I guess I really don't like using freelance anymore. Independent consultant, and I do accessibility audits. I do accessibility. I help organizations bring in accessibility to their organization. Um, I have been doing web development I was doing design for a while since 1999 professionally. Started coding when I was 9, so that was a long time ago. Um,
Wait, what were you making at 9? Like, what were you doing?
so, do you remember those choose your own adventure books?
Yes.
I was taking those books and I was writing them out in Commodore Basic on a Commodore 64, and I was selling the floppies to my friends for $20 each book.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's cool. Didn't even know that you could do that. Would never thought of that. That's
I
genius.
don't think you were supposed to, but
You're out here pirating at the tender age of very young.
yeah, well, educational value, educational material.
Yeah, we're not going to be mad
um,
at it.
no, I hope not. Um, so currently, I'm with the W3C as an invited expert with writing the guidelines with the accessibility guidelines working group and the accessibility the ACT rules, which are they go hand in hand. Basically, I'm helping write what you see um, for guidelines for accessibility. um, I do auditing. I am moving actually over. I'm in the phase in my career where I'm moving over to developer relations, but I'll still be doing a lot of advocating for accessibility and for people with disabilities. I myself am personally affected by, and we talked about this the last time we spoke. I have reasons that I started doing this so long ago. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Okay. Well, I have some questions just based off of what you said that I wanted to make sure that everyone was clear about so that they know what you're talking about. So,
Yep.
one would be, what is the W3C? What is that?
The World Wide Web Consortium, that is the standardization body that um, you know they do accessibility. You can find them at w3.org. They develop standards and guidelines to help everybody based on the principles of accessibility, internationalization, privacy, and security.
Right. I put that over in the chat. And if you all hear me typing, because I have a very loud mechanical keyboard, because that's just who I am inside, I'm creating some notes for us and I'm going to share a Google Doc with some of this information. Okay, so now that we know what the W3 is, what is the wcag? I heard you say the standardized something, something, something. So make sure that everyone knows exactly what that is, briefly.
Briefly, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which is basically the foundation of web and digital accessibility.
Right. So there's like a bunch of guidelines that give us kind of a way to look at web pages and assess them for whether or not people with disabilities can use them. So that is actually really cool because those are international standards, and being on a board or being involved with that, I just think that's so cool. All right.
Yes, it is actually, and the process is really interesting. Some days it's very easy, and meetings are just like they go nice and fast, and it's great. Other days it's like being at a family reunion and arguing with all your relatives. So
I can
those are the
imagine.
days. Those are the days that make for long meetings.
I bet. Okay, and the last question I wanted to touch on was, what is developer relations?
Developer relations is basically you ask 100 people and you get 100 different answers.
I know, that's why I want to hear what you have to say about it.
It's basically to build relationships with developers to try and not only try a certain product but use a certain product. That's that bridge between the developers and the company building the product. Through education, through speaking at conferences, community, um, listening to feedback from developers. A lot of, I really don't like to use the term, but evangelism, for
It's the
lack of a
truth.
better word.
Yeah.
Um, but and then there's other things. I mean, you see developer, relations people, devrel for short. You see devrel people at booths at conferences, and they're talking about the product with people. It's not just, they're giving out stickers, pens, t-shirts. It's a lot more than that.
Right. They're doing like demos and showing you how to use everything and really
Yep.
advocating for the company and getting developers really excited about whatever tools it is. Um, what talked about conferences and speaking. I know that's one of the things that you've been doing and that you're really good at and that you like to do. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you speak about in these conferences? And before I forget, I also was curious about the bridge between developer relations and accessibility, and if you see one, or if you're working in that space while also doing accessibility, or if you're just kind of like converging away from accessibility.
So what I speak about at conferences is accessibility. Um, my f- and I haven't been doing it for very long. I've been doing it since the beginning of 2022. I started late, but with that said, I my first talk was from an article I wrote for Smashing Magazine, how to bring accessibility to your organization. And it was well received. People were like, "You should turn this into a talk." So I turned it into a talk, and through 2022, I think I was at like a dozen different conferences giving that talk. Um, and it went well. It brought it, a lot of people became aware of accessibility. I would have people coming up to me after the talk and saying, "Oh, well, I'm going to pay attention more to accessibility." So basically, I've been talking about that. This year, I've been talking about deceptive patterns and the work that I'm doing in the W3C for that. And as far as the bridge there is a bridge. I strongly believe that definitely is. I've actually, while I haven't, while I'm not in the role per se, I can see I can see that some people, um, some DevRel people do bring that mention of accessibility in their talks. So, like for instance, um, I've seen talks where accessibility is mentioned quite a few times, and the person works for a company and they're in developer relations. So there definitely is one there. I would, if my role was DevRel for a company, I definitely, you know, have a little bit more focus on accessibility because that's my niche.
Right.
So
All right.
there is that bridge,
Okay.
definitely.
So we're definitely going to circle back to deceptive patterns. Definitely circling back. But what I want to do in between then is fill in some of the gaps and talk a little bit more about accessibility in general, web accessibility, and ways for developers who are both seasoned and new to start using some more tools and some of your thoughts about the space in general. So I'm going to start with, um, let's see. So, what made you want to work in accessibility? We talked about this a little bit, but we're going to say it again since we're going to put this on YouTube and there might be some new people in the chat with us today.
Basically, I think we all have family or friends or both who are disabled in some fashion. It may not be visible, it may be a hidden disability. Um, but I have family members who are disabled, and seeing the looks on their faces of frustration, anger, they're ready to give up, um, you know, despondence, you know, that made me want to get into it, and or try to make the web more accessible. Um, and for them, I am their voice,
Right.
um, because I am in a privileged position to have that opportunity to be that voice for them. So that is the reason why I originally jumped into this. I got out of it. Well, I didn't get out of it. I got away from it for a little while. And in 2019, I saw a talk in Burlington, Vermont, from a friend of mine, Chris DeMars, and he was talking about accessibility, and that just lit the fire again. And from that talk on, it's been, you know, back in accessibility with both feet, and um, writing articles, speaking about it, and doing all the stuff that I've been doing, joining the W3C.
Okay. I wanted to hear about how you've impacted someone concretely with accessibility specifically. And we're talking about accessibility digitally.
I have been thinking about that, and I still, um, if I have, I'm not cognizant of it really. Um, I think I've impacted. Let me answer it this way. Through my work, through my auditing, and from those audits that has been handed off, and these companies that take those audits and they say, okay, we're going to implement this to make our product, our whatever, better. Okay. I think that's how I have affected something or someone, in accessibility, by that work. So it's basically by osmosis, my work has done the work for me
Right.
without me targeting somebody. Specifically, um, I think my work and organizations that have made those changes, I think that's the change that I've made for people.
Right. So just giving them more access with some of the things that you've put into place, essentially.
Yeah. Even if it's just, making your focus rings, have more contrast, or, making the web page keyboard accessible, something like that.
Perfect.
Even
Yeah, and
that
that
small.
that opens the doors for so many people. Those very
Yep.
small things.
Yep.
So, what languages are you using right now? What are you coding in? Are you working on any specific projects? Mostly I want to know your tech stack and technically like what you're doing.
So I'm the type of person that I will dabble in everything, and I have been like that since day one. When I learned Commodore Basic, I learned about 5 or 6 different types of basic code back in the day. I learned Scheme, I learned Lisp. It was just a lot of different things because I'm very curious. So now my stack is, I really, I mean, definitely HTML, CSS, JavaScript. If you want to get specific with the JavaScript, I'm using Angular and Vue, and I'm using the Ionic framework for mobile apps. Um, um, and that's it for right now. I haven't really, you know, I had been doing auditing for so long that, one, I got burnt out, and two, I got away from the coding aspect of my work. So, um, as I get back more into it, um, it changes.
Right, right.
Um, so, I mean, tomorrow I could say, you know what, I'm going to just throw something out there and use React.
Right. So
But I
CBID.
always, it always falls for me because I'm one of the older people. It'll always fall back to semantic HTML, CSS, and accessible JavaScript.
Yep. I find that really interesting because I'm learning right now, as everyone kind of knows. I'm learning more about coding accessible code, and I got really caught up with getting overwhelmed with all the frameworks. So like React, Vue, Angular, all of that stuff. I was like, I think I have to learn one because this is what people want. And that was a little overwhelming for me because, like you said, when you're doing web accessibility work sometimes, especially if you're doing a lot of audits and things like that, you're not really coding. You're looking at web pages, maybe making some suggestions to developers or PMs or designers about what they can do to make it look better, but you're not going in there and you're not like building things. So one of the things that I wanted to share with everyone here and just like talk about a little bit was the fact that if you're doing this kind of work, it's not really the framework necessarily that really matters as much as just knowing the foundations of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript when you're doing this work. Because if you know those things, you can talk in a way where people understand and can kind of implement whatever you've said within whatever framework they're using, because they're going to be using that as a baseline. So now that we know that, me myself, I don't really know any frameworks. I'm pretty much a newbie when it comes to coding in general. I've only been doing it for like a year. Um, but what do you think? I love this question because people really think about it and they have different answers. But when it comes to things like React Native, Vue, React, Angular, Ionic, all of these, what do you think is the most accessible right now?
Ionic.
Ionic. I've been hearing about Ionic, haven't messed around with it at all, but that's really lovely to hear. So I'm going to actually write that down so I can remember Ionic. But Ionic is a mobile framework, right?
Yes.
So knowing that that's a mobile framework, let's talk about the ones that aren't mobile that we are using a little bit more. That would be probably more like React Native and React, Vue, and Angular, right? Am I missing one that we use a lot?
Um, I'm sure there definitely are others out there. I just,
I'm talking web
one, I don't,
development.
yeah, there are so many out there.
There are, yeah.
Um, there's what, Svelte, Astro, and I don't think those are really frameworks, but they could be.
Right, right.
I mean, a good craftsman never blames their tools.
Do you know what?
So, if you're using something, you can make it accessible. It is possible. I have made a React app accessible, a Vue app accessible, an Angular app accessible. So it's possible.
I don't like that answer. Tell me which one I can use that will give me the least amount of trouble if I use it. Please.
Ionic. And
Ionic,
here's
but what if
why.
I want to make a desktop web app, man?
You
It's
could do that with
archaic, but
Ionic.
oh, you can.
You can.
Okay. Well,
And you can use Angular, Vue, or React with Ionic.
okay. That's really cool. I didn't know that. So I'm going to pause to ask a question from Hulda Code Decodes.
Okay.
They ask, how does one avoid liability as a freelance accessibility software engineer when making a website accessible to clients?
I have a very bulletproof contract when it comes to that. And I've taken that from my web development contract when I was doing web development, and I just shifted it towards audits. And if I have to do any remediation, because sometimes I've been in code bases before to look around and poke around. And sometimes, if that was the case, they were very willing for me to make a code change. So, or file file an issue or a pull request. So with that, I have basically, you want to make sure that you relay to the client that while you may go through and you may audit a website, things change so much, things change so rapidly. Accessibility can change. So you're not going to make the website 100% accessible, because that's not possible. It's not possible at all these days, unless it's a static website.
Right, right, right.
But other than that, you have to tell them, my job is to do an audit. If I don't find anything in that initial audit, if you want me to come back in 6 months to a year and do another one, do a secondary audit, I can do that. If you want to bring in somebody else, that's fine. Or if you want to do that with an internal team, if you have an accessibility team, you can do that with them too. And that's kind of like a gloss over the language I have in my contract.
Right. So I feel like the answer here is to never promise that anything you do is going to be 100%. Like, an audit is just an audit. An audit is, here's what I found and here's the information, and you may do with it as you please, and you can change what you want. This is not a guarantee or a promise that your website will be 100% compliant, because that's not real. And if you hear anything from any company saying that they can guarantee that, they're probably full of it. We could talk about that later, and we will talk about it probably. But yeah, we're just auditors. We're just looking for things. So now that we know we're looking for things, we have in our contract probably, like, this is not a guarantee for 100%. These are suggestions that you may take. You may also use someone else to comb over it if you want. Let's talk about the things that we see all the time. And illegal fireworks, we're going to get back to that. So Illegal Fireworks asked, where can someone get started learning about how to make a bulletproof contract? We're going to come back to that after we talk about some of the web accessibility errors that we see a lot when we're doing audits on real websites. What are like your top three? Let's say top three.
Oh, that's a good question. Can you repeat that one more time for me?
All right.
I'm
What are
sorry.
the top 3 web accessibility defects that you find over and
Oh,
over again when you're doing audits? Like
okay.
headings not being tagged correctly.
I'm looking right at my worksheet right now for an audit that I'm doing. So I will go with missing form labels.
Why does that matter,
And
Todd?
uh, because screen reader users need those visual labels read aloud to them. And if you're missing a form label, it's not going to be read. And as an aside, placeholders are not labels.
No, they're not.
Placeholders will be read by most, if not all, screen readers twice,
Right.
sometimes 3 times.
Right. Exactly.
So, missing form labels, and this is a big one lately for me, is the missing or invalid language attribute in the HTML tag.
That is actually
If
something,
you're
yeah.
Yeah, if you're missing the language attribute in the HTML tag, basically you're telling a screen reader user you're gonna have to figure out what language to read this web page in.
Right.
Is basically it. And the third one is one that has gnawed at me for decades now, and that's low contrast of text.
A
I
classic.
can't see every year in the Web A Million report. That's number one
Ah,
for the
yes.
past 5 or 6 years.
So we're actually going to put that in the chat as well because we did that last time and that was a really, really good one. So go ahead and put that in the chat. I don't remember it, so I'm going to let you put it in the chat, Todd. And I'm going to,
The Web A Million report. Okay.
yeah. I had it up and then, oh, here it is actually. Just kidding. I do have it. All right, so that's
Hulda asked about labels, not placeholders. Yes, placeholders. Placeholders are also bad because most of the time they don't have sufficient contrast. Also, with placeholders, if they disappear, people with cognitive issues or memory loss can forget what they were doing. If you click outside of that text area, the input area, and the placeholder doesn't come back, they can forget what they were typing. Oh, I can't remember what I was typing. Was I typing my name? Was I typing my email address? Was I typing my address? So
right. And ironically, I actually just, I don't know if Emma's still in the chat, but she does an open source project where we're talking about just all the areas that you could do for a web page and how to do them correctly. We actually just finished the one for forms, and I talk extensively about how to build an accessible form field. So I'm going to put that in the chat for you guys to read if you want to read that. It's pretty informative. And I'm pretty proud of myself because I learned some new things while I was doing that myself as I'm learning. So it goes pretty in depth. Go ahead and copy that and save it somewhere if you want to read about it. The other question that someone asked was, how would we learn about making, let me double check what that was. How can someone get started learning how to make a bulletproof contract? Well, I will answer that with my own words because I had to do it myself as well. Google's your friend and also ChatGPT. And then the other one would be ask people like Todd to maybe don't literally ask Todd, but like someone in your life who has a business and has done contracts and stuff, have a coffee chat with them, ask ask if they can show you maybe their contract. But what do you think, Todd?
I can show you the web development one that I actually used from, and this is many years ago, so this has changed a little bit, but Andy Clark had the contract killer, and it's on his website, and that's pretty much where I started. I took the template that he has on this page. If you scroll down to below that big image.
Actually, I'm going to share my screen because that makes sense so that we can all look at this together.
So I took that and I brought that to a couple people I know in the legal space, and we added to it. We reworded some stuff, and then when I got out of web development and when I went mainly into accessibility, I did it again where we went and we reworded it for accessibility, and I am at where I'm at now, and it's, that is where it started. So
So
if you go,
is this it?
yes, if you scroll down a little bit below,
Oh, right here.
right there, yeah. And if you show the full contract in that dialogue there,
Bro. Where would it be?
nope, not there.
Oh, show full.
So you
This
go
one. Oh,
up,
is this it?
go up into the gray area. There you go. There you go. Yep.
Full contract. Okay. Well, we know now where we would go. I think I also stole this for one of my own, and I use this as well because Todd told me about it. But I will definitely be putting this link in that Google Doc that I will post after this on Twitter, so that you all have this. Put that in my stuff right here. All right, cool. Thank you for that. All right,
Yeah.
so we're gonna switch gears again and get back to some more questions. So we talked about the languages. We know that Ionic is your favorite. It seems the most accessible. I've also heard that from other professionals in the field. So I kind of want to mess around with it, but I'm just like, ugh, I'm still learning JavaScript, my guy. So I don't know if I'm going to do that, but we'll see. What are your favorite tools to use when it comes to testing web accessibility for pages? So we know that when it comes to automated tools will maybe give us at best 50% of what you could find because you have to kind of test manually. But if we are either newbies or we are, trying to have some better tools, what do you like to use?
So I use a lot of extensions for the browser. I mainly do my testing in Firefox, um, because I feel it has the better the accessibility tools in the dev tools. Um,
What
so
about
first,
Chrome? Because I'm a Chrome girly and I can't help
mhm.
myself. But everyone says Firefox is better.
Chrome has the better dev tools, but they kind of lack on the accessibility side of things. Um, Firefox has the better accessibility side of things, but they lack in the dev tools area. So basically, what I start with, I'll here. This is what I'll do. These are my favorites, so I'll tell you what I do when I do an audit. When I first open the page, I open Wave. Wave gives me a baseline. I don't solely go off Wave because there are some things that there's a lot of false positives that I find in these tools. And Wave has more than I particularly care for. So I have levels of testing that hopefully will cover everything when I'm doing an audit. So I start with Wave and I say, oh, this is what I'm in store for. Then I move over to the Axe Dev Tools from DQ Systems,
Mm-hmm.
and I will scan with that. And then when I'm done with the Axe, when I do the Axe, when I'm done with Axe, I will move over to the IBM Equal Access Checker and do a scan with that. And then after that, I will move over to Chrome and I will use the ARC toolkit by
Hold on,
TPGI.
sorry. Is there an echo anywhere, my friends?
No, apparently the echo is back.
All right, let's make sure everything is. Huh. I think sometimes that happens when I. Okay. Hulda, you don't hear an echo? Sorry for that crazy link. Oh my gosh. I just said the longest link ever. Why is that? Nope. Mild echo when the screen is shared, but all good now. Okay. I'm gonna hold off on sharing the screen for now. So whenever I send those links, just go ahead and if you're already on your computer, you can kind of look at the links, or you can just wait till I put them all together on Twitter. I appreciate y'all. Just keep letting us know if you hear that echo, because that is one of our concerns. Alrighty. So we first do Wave. That's honestly what I do too. Then you look at Axe. Oddly, the same thing I do as well. The other one that you don't have is IBM. So IBM is one that I haven't used yet, and that's the equal access checker, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm grabbing that. I'm gonna put that in the chat. And then put it on my little list. And then I would love a link for the deck that's not like as scary as the one I just used. That was a lot. I wonder why I did that. Let's see if I put it in here. Now, if it'll be weird. Nope. There you go. That is the axe tool.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do you do?
I put in the link to the TPGI ARC toolkit. ARC will catch a lot of anything that has tried to filter through under the radar, so to speak. So, and that's Chrome only. So I put the link there.
Okay, gonna grab that link. That one's ARC. Tell me more about ARC. Why is it catching things that the other ones wouldn't catch?
That has more tools to it, actually. So if you use ARC, you can actually check for reflow issues. So,
Okay.
and I won't get into reflow issues because it's a little long-winded and complicated, but
Okay, but side note, I'm putting down reflow issues as something that you will elaborate on for us in the study group.
I can give you. Let me give you.
Or give us an article or something, please.
I am giving you an article right now. Eric Eggert, a former colleague of mine at Nobility, he actually blogged about this, and there it is in the chat right there. That is the perfect explanation of how reflow 1.1.10 goes with resize text 1.4.4. And you can have one or the other. You could have both.
Oh, are you talking about wcag?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
So ARC offers a few extra tools that I use, and then I use a host of other. Occasionally, I use a host of other bookmarklets. So I'm trying to find. Let's see, accessibility bookmarklets.
Okay. So I do have another question.
Okay.
I've been pretty curious about this. What tools can, so this is for the software engineers who are actually building code, not just testing their own code. Because what we're talking about right now is we're talking about once you've built your page and you have the page on the internet, and you can look at it, this will kind of test what's visually on the screen, and then it'll test also the code a little bit. But like if I am an engineer and I am writing the code myself in my IDE in VS Code or whatever, is there some type of extension or tool that I can use to comb through that within that space?
Axe. They have an extension for VS Code.
How did I
I
not know
use
that?
I
It's
use
like I'm
that.
embarrassed.
I use that, and let me actually. I will throw it. Axe is pretty much what powers most of the accessibility testing tools out there. So I threw in the link to some bookmarklets um, that are on a website. But you have Jest Axe, Cypress, I believe, has testing. Um, Playwright uses Axe for end-to-end
What was the
testing.
other one that you said before that?
Jest,
Oh, I've used Jest.
yes. No. And I see Graham. Hello, Graham.
Graham, hey Graham, what's up? What? I got Graham and Emma in the chat. My heart. You guys are like celebrities to me. Web accessibility kings and queens. All right, so let's move on. We talked about some of the extensions, some of the tools, some of the things we see a lot. And let's see what else I wanted to ask you about. Okay, what should you answered this last time, but what should developers do more of and what should they do less of? Oh no, hold on.
More.
Graham just said oh, you came for me. He said he just came here for Todd. You're rude. I should kick you out right now and ban you, but whatever. We'll move on.
Thanks, Graham. um, what should developers do more of? Think about the people on the other side of the glass. We do not ship your computer. We do not ship your thing. We ship what you made or what you're making. So when I hear a developer say, "Well, it works on my computer," I cringe and then I say, "We're not shipping your computer." So
Correct.
they should do more thinking about the people on the other side of the glass. They should do less of excluding people, either, and most of the time I would say about 98% of the time, maybe, that they don't mean to do this, but they exclude people. They do not include people when they do not make things accessible. So you got to think about the end user before you think about, well, it works on my computer, so it's fine.
Right. And I want to interject a little bit and also say that a lot of people assume that they're users. And I hear this, not kidding, all the time, word for word. But my target audience doesn't have a disability. And I'm like, bruh, how do you know that they don't have a disability? Like most, what is 20% of disabilities or more than that? I can't remember. Maybe 60% of disabilities are silent and you can't see them. I'm sitting here in front of you with a disability. You didn't even know that, right? So it's like, It's one of those things where I'm always like, maybe think about the fact that that's a thing. I know that we don't think about it a lot, but we're here talking about it so that you do think about that. Uh,
Well, I have a hidden disability myself. I suffer from, oh, well, I don't suffer. Well,
we're
there's
so
some
used to
days I
talking about it like that. I'm impaired.
I get migraine headaches, and that could be from animation on the web, motion, sunlight. I live in Phoenix, Arizona now. It's been 100 degrees, over 100 degrees every day in July. Sorry, I can't go outside for more than 10 minutes without getting a headache, which turns into a migraine. Barometric pressure changes will give me migraines. If I had a mother-in-law, that would give me a migraine. But
It's real.
um, I see no anime for you to. Actually, I can I can watch a little bit, but not too much anime.
And
So,
also, Karina Merg, we will come back to your question. I see it.
so you can't assume everybody is the same as you when you're building an app or you're coding a website, building a website, doing whatever. You got to think of the possibilities. You got to think. You also have to think, who do you want to exclude today? You probably don't want to exclude anybody.
Right. And
So,
someone said something that I really liked and is a good point. In this house, we center people with disabilities, but in order to put it at the forefront of people's minds, we also want to remember and then tell everyone when you make something more accessible for someone else, you make it more accessible for everyone. So
yes.
that inherently everyone wins, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Your SEO gets better. It's great. And then the other thing would be something I think about a lot is people thinking that accessibility means it's going to be uglier, so they can't because we're changing things. It's going to be uglier, but that's a whole nother story. We're not even going to get into that right now. Actually,
Yeah, that's like, well, it goes way back to when I first started. People were like, "Well, I hate that ugly outline when you over a link when you tab to a link." Well, now these days you can style that to your brand, and it doesn't have to be ugly. I come across that all the time with designers.
right? I I did a live coding code with me thing when I was talking about web accessibility, like I don't know, probably last year probably last year I think. But one of the things we did was we styled my focus button because I was like, this is ugly. First of all, no, I gotta have my stuff cute, and we made it like blue. It was circular. It was like rounded instead of like blocky and thick. So listen here, you can do it and make it look good. If you're a web developer, you have the skill. You just need to make the initiative to do it in the beginning so you don't have to do it at the end when you've already built the whole thing and then you got to go back in and change it because that would have taken
Hmm.
you like 2 seconds. No, not two. It would have
Hmm.
taken you 5 minutes to make the
Hmm.
button of your dreams. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, anyways, we're going to move on to a question that Karina Merg asked because my next question directly correlates with that. So, Karina Merg asked, they said they were learning about front end since late fall last year. Where should one go for specific alley accessibility related coding with JavaScript/React questions? My question specifically was, what would you where would you tell people to start when it comes to learning about accessibility?
Believe it or not, Twitter, or what
Yes.
I call it, it's in this like metamorphosis stage, Twixter, as I call it. Um, I had to throw the X in there somewhere. If you ask the accessibility community on Twitter for the most part, the accessibility community is very open, very friendly, um, and will answer those questions. There is an accessibility Slack group that you can join
Mm-hmm.
if somebody wants to get in touch with me. Uh, they can do that, and I can send you an invite. All I would need if you wanted to join that Slack group is your email, and I will send out an invite to you.
Mm-hmm.
There are a ton of people on there with a lifetime of knowledge that are more than happy to answer. Um, Other places, trying to think. And I'm sure there are a ton of places I can't think of off the top of my head, but um, Marcy Sutton's course.
Yes.
If you're one of those people that you'll pay the money to take the course, that is a terrific course. Her testing accessibility course is probably the best one out there right now.
Right, right. So I will also answer that question. Twitter is a great place because most of us in web accessibility are kind of nerds and we're just excited that you care and want to learn about it. So we'll be very excited to talk to you about it for the most part. And another place to go would probably be like the wcag guidelines, which are really dry, unfortunately. There's not a lot of good free resources, but there is the edX course that'll give you like a very generalized intro to accessibility. It's free. It's very robust. If you're trying to just get started, it doesn't go really far into like JavaScript or anything like that. Those, if you're like trying to learn like really specific things, it's harder to find things like that. So I'm going to plug myself because I have created things that I created because I couldn't find anything free and because I was a little frustrated myself with trying to find something just to get started. So if you go on my Twitter and you go to my pinned tweets, I have a bunch of YouTube videos that'll get you started. I think that are pretty good with getting you started, and it's free, and it goes through the things that I had to learn over many months and gather myself. The other thing I'm going to plug would be our study group. The study group is going to be a 16-week course where we get together and we learn web accessibility engineering specifically. So going over things like forms, ARIA, JavaScript, widgets, all of that stuff. We'll be doing that together. So that's a resource that you can use if you want to join us. This is more community based, more casual, like I don't know everything. The community's coming together kind of to learn together and help each other out. I feel like I need to eventually take this Marcy Sutton course because it sounds amazing, but I'm hopeful that these free resources that we put together will be helpful for everyone. And I will also link some of those resources in this Google Doc at the end. So we're going to move on so that I can ask Todd a few more questions. We're going to go for maybe about 30 more minutes, if that. Todd, you good for another 30 to get into some juiciness and answer some questions? All right, I'm going to go through the chat really fast and answer any questions that I may have overlooked. CBID was indeed the one who said that accessibility helps all. Absolutely. Hulda, I like the mindset generally is that accessibility standards are prescriptive. They are not. Absolutely not. They all, everything is just based off of it depends, unfortunately. CBID, I did see that they took the X logo down. For context, I did a tweet a couple days ago about how the X building sign that they had up flashed more than 3 times per second, which is literally in the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is a law saying like literally you cannot do that because you will give people seizures. And his sign was like flashing at a whole like apartment complex. Kind of insane. So I'm glad that they finally took that down. Let's see what else is on here. Africa's one of the first people, about the inaccessibility of the sign. Yeah, crazy.
That guy is such a He's such a knob.
Yeah,
So
I'm not even gonna talk about. I don't even want to hear his name. Like, Karina Merg said that sometimes they need someone to look at their code. For example, you're building a bookstore app and you're stuck on trying to bring the focus to the cart modal. Karina Merg, if you're not already on Twitter, what I would do, especially when I was learning and building things, I would literally go on Twitter, learn in public, tell everyone what I was doing, and then ask the question or ask if someone could look at my code, which is a big deal. Like, no, like a lot of people don't have the time to do that, but then they would sit on Zoom for me for like 3 hours trying to help me with my code. So that's a really good place to do that. Oh, and then Emma said she's happy to look. If Emma's happy to look, you're in good hands. So that's amazing. All right, so let's get into some more stuff. All right, let's talk about your 3 best pieces of advice. So we're getting more into like people who are interested in the field, where the field is going, your thoughts on that. And then we're going to talk. I really want to talk about deceptive patterns because I want to ask you about that tweet that I did about Reddit because I need to know.
okay. Okay.
But, anyways, what is your top 3 pieces of advice for someone who's interested in getting into the web accessibility field?
Ask all the questions. That's number one. Don't be afraid to ask all the questions. Number two, it's a grind. I don't have gray hair just because I have gray hair because of accessibility. Um, it will be rewarding, but it will also be challenging at the same time. Accessibility is very subjective. The wcag guidelines are a baseline, a foundation. So don't rely solely on the wcag guidelines. There's usability, performance. There's a bunch of other stuff that falls under that UX umbrella that you need to consider. So it's not just, oh, wcag says this. This is what the standard says. There's more to it than that. Um, so it's a challenge. It's a challenge to remember those things. It's a challenge to read the wcag guidelines because they are a very technical manual written by technical people, technical writers. So um, ask all the questions. Be prepared for a grind, but it is rewarding at the same time. So when you see, some of your work that has been implemented and it made something accessible, it's very rewarding. You've opened up the door and you've knocked down a barrier for people. Just remember that part when you're going through the grind. And the third thing would be all right, I'm going to say this. It is going to get spicy.
Oh, gosh. I'm excited.
There are some people in the accessibility space that are combative. They are angry. They are salty, and
Salty.
they have their reasons, and that's fine. You don't have to deal with and you don't have to engage with everybody. Find the people in the accessibility community that are open, welcoming, friendly, and talk to them. Um, those other people, let them be how they're going to be. But there are pockets of those people out there, just like there are pockets of those people in certain other spaces. So not going to name what those spaces are. I think people probably know what they are, but there are certain groups of, say, developers that it's a very it can be a very toxic um, space. So don't get into that space. Find the welcoming and the friendly people um, in accessibility and elsewhere too. But for the most part, I would say 95% or more 98 maybe percent of the people in the accessibility space are very friendly, welcoming, and will welcome you with open arms.
Right. That's why we talk about Twitter a lot, because a lot of us are kind of, we're on Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever. But those spaces where you can kind of see social proof of people who talk about it a lot, talk about it in a way that's not, I wouldn't say off-putting. I think some people are just tired and like they're just like, please just do it. And that's me too. But you can tell the difference between like, I'm a little frustrated that I have to keep saying this versus like, I don't want anyone to ask me any questions. I'm like, please ask me questions. I want to teach everyone. So a lot of the people who are in accessibility were like really excited to like teach people and like get them in thinking about it. But this is not a web accessibility issue. This is I think a software engineering developer tech gatekeeping issue where people don't like a lot of questions and they kind of look down on you sometimes without that. We're not going to get too negative about it and talk about it too much, but that's how I feel about it sometimes.
I think it's an internet issue. I think the internet can bring out the worst in some people. But
True.
With that said, also at the same time, I got to address, I have been telling people to do the same crap for 25 years now. Mm-hmm. When you said some people may be tired, I am exhausted. I'm exhausted with telling people, hey, don't forget your alt text in your images. Or, hey, don't forget to make that text better with the bump the contrast up on that text so people with low vision can see it. I've been saying that now for over 2 decades. Please. I'm tired. I know a lot of other people that have been longer than I have in accessibility who feel the same way. We're tired, but we love this, and we do this because we love this, and because of our reasons why we got into this. We will keep doing this, even though we're tired.
Right, and that's why. Youngins and oldies and whoever you want to call yourselves, including myself, because I'm still a newbie for the most part, right? That's why we need to get out there and take up the mantle a little bit and be loud and be annoying and tell people about it. So I'm hopeful that as I learn more and as I like grow in the space, I can take up some of that energy that you've been putting out and throw it back so that you can rest. It's your time to rest, Todd. Don't go out there and get yourself all worked up. Just bring it to the people like me, and I will do it for you, man.
I would love to do that. I always say accessibility is a right, not a privilege.
Bye, Hulda. Thanks for hanging out with us. And Andy's...
I would... Go ahead.
Andy's tit. Lord. They said fighting for people's civil rights never ends, and that is what we're doing. And that is so true. So true. Were you about to say something, Todd? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't remember now. It's gone. So.
No worries. All right, so let's move on to the last couple questions that I had.
Okay.
Let's see. So we talked a little bit about some of the projects you were working on. We talked about some of your speaking and how you've been doing conferences. What I wanted to talk about a little bit was about deceptive patterns. I'm going to look at the chat really fast before we get into that, because I really want to get into that. Emma said, I got subtweeted and called a clueless Deb by one of the Grumpy Alley experts the other day. Emma, please DM me and tell me who. I'm like, I haven't run into anybody grumpy yet, but I have run into like developers who are like, they basically called me an idiot. And I'm just like, okay, well, I'm out here trying to learn, man. But yeah. Deceptive patterns.
Boo them.
Deceptive patterns. I am so entertained by who is Hestia? I don't know who that is. Is that a Greek god or something? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who that is. I'm sorry, guys. Who's Hestia? Is she spicy? Because, like, if she is, I feel that. Anyways, I'm so interested in deceptive patterns because they're everywhere. We talked about how it's really hard to get companies to switch away from deceptive patterns because it's so lucrative. So some of the things I wanted to talk about were A, what are deceptive patterns? Why we're not using the word dark patterns anymore, because that's basically what we're talking about, and how we can convince, persuade, whatever you want to call it, people to stop using them.
Okay, I will address um, what deceptive patterns are. I will give you a brief, very brief history lesson behind this. Harry Brignall, who is a cognitive scientist and a UX consultant in England, coined the term in 2010. Um, that term, dark patterns, and now we'll move into the second part of your question. That gained weight and traction in legal circles. So that's where that came from. Um, I recently, as a couple years ago, had been doing research and had decided I think there needs to be a better term for what these patterns are trying to do, because dark is just, there's connotation behind it, I believe. There's connotation and it's exclusionary language. So I think, when you think of dark, what do you think? Scary, evil, or you used to see the cowboy movie, the old cowboy westerns, where the bad guy was wearing black with a black cowboy hat, and the good
Spooky.
guy, yeah, and the good guy was wearing white. He was all in white, and he had the white horse, and he had the white hat, and white is innocence and cleanliness, and I think the time has come to stop using that term, because I think it reaches further than that, actually. And we've seen companies change their language. So, with that said, um, a deceptive pattern, which I believe is better language, it's a deliberate, or, you know, a deceptive pattern is a deliberate intent to lead a user down a path they do not want to go down. Okay, the companies do this because they want your money, they want your time. That's bottom line. So, and there's other types of patterns that I will go into briefly. One being an anti pattern, which there may not be intent behind it, but it's harmful and it's bad UX or it's bad design. So, bad design is an anti pattern, bad UX is an anti pattern. A deceptive pattern, deception is with intent, it's deliberate. So, that's what a deceptive pattern is. Um, I believe that, there are, like I said, there are better terms than dark. Dark is just, I think that kind of language doesn't need to be, used in the web. Unfortunately,
So let
that
me
has,
ask you, when we're
yep.
talking about deceptive patterns, now we know what they are. We know we're not using dark patterns anymore. Love that. What does that have to do with accessibility or web accessibility? How can we as engineers or auditors or testers or just enthusiasts, how can we avoid the use of patterns like that and convey that they're bad? Like, who is it impacting when we're thinking? I know we're talking about people with cognitive impairments and things like that, brain injuries, or right, little things like that. Can you elaborate on that?
It can affect everybody,
Right.
and it does affect everybody. For instance, your your income is limited, let's say. Okay, you are on a budget, and you are pinching pennies to the max. Okay. But you need a phone. And you go to, and we talked about this the other day, T-Mobile still does this, where T-Mobile has their price comparison on their website, right? They have the top three highest priced comparison boxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they have other plans, but you have to click the button down on the bottom that's not highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
That's a deceptive pattern. They're trying to upsell you a higher priced tier rather than, hey, you probably don't have the money to play around with like somebody who is making 150,000 a year, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to go click this button. It pops up a modal and it says, here's the lowest priced plan, which isn't that much of difference. That's a deceptive pattern. That's leading you down a path you don't want to take. You want that information right there in front of you. So with the 4 or 5 tiers that they should have those tiers spelled out for you on one page, right? Without having to do any unnecessary clicking. So that's going to affect that may affect somebody with anxiety. That may affect somebody by they don't know that they have to click that call to action, so they move on and they keep looking for something else that that is eating up your time. um you have and we talked about this the other day, timers. That if you go to a site, right, 98%, 99% of those timers are deceptive, because if you refresh the page, they're going to go back, hey, we have a sale and it's 12 hours long and it's 11 hours 50 minutes, blah blah blah. Refresh that page and see what happens. I bet you 9.9 times out of 10 it's going to roll back to 12 hours and count down again.
Right.
So those are deceptive patterns. They're trying to take your money, and they're definitely taking your time.
Right. Right. All right. Love that. Hope you guys heard that. I really love that. One last thing, because I've just been burning on my mind. I just wanted to talk to you about it. Because I want to spend our last 10 minutes talking about what about maybe like the last 20 years, like what's changed in accessibility. And I think that's mostly what I wanted to talk about. But so I would just want your opinion on this. I'm obsessed with Reddit. Like, I'm a Redditor. Like, I'm just on that all day. And every time I see like upvotes that have like 332 or 11110, I'm like, I have to upvote it. And I was thinking about it and I was like, is this a dark pattern? I was like, is it just like that? It's not really that many upvotes, but they like put it like that so that like I have to upvote it. I know it sounds ridiculous, but like, it's not that ridiculous. It's a form of engagement. What do you think?
It may be, it may not be. I would have to look further into it. But to be honest with you, it's Reddit, so it may be. It may be a deceptive pattern.
Yeah, speaking of that, Reddit sucks, guys, even though like I'm gonna keep using it, unfortunately. But one of the subreddits is called R Blind, and it's basically for the blind community. And because Reddit got rid of its third party support, the apps that they used to use to make the app accessible, which it is not, they can't use it anymore. So the moderators of the blind community's Reddit page cannot moderate their stuff yet. And they keep, rip Apollo, they keep trying to talk to Reddit staff, and Reddit's like, we care about accessibility. Please let us know how we can make it different. They're like literally like, please, can you work for free for us to tell us how we can change this? And then we're not really going to change it. LOL. Like, it's so messed up. But anyways, that's my soapbox about Reddit. I'm really annoyed by that, and it's lame. Furthermore, let's talk about um, you've been
Did
in
you want
assess.
me to answer the question?
Oh,
What's
about
changed in the last 20 years?
that's what I, yeah, I was about to circle back to
Oh,
that.
okay. Sorry.
Yes. So you've been in the field for 20 years, and that's a long time. So can you tell us what do you think the biggest change between, other than the obvious, which is that technology has changed and it's gotten more complex and bigger? Do you think that there's been any mindset shifts? Has it felt like it's the same? You're just talking the same stuff over and over again? I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
If I've had people ask me this too, and they've asked me, has anything changed? No. The web is still 99% inaccessible. If there were any change, it would be 98%, 97%. Um, I have to, and I know I have colleagues and I know people in the accessibility space, and maybe Graham can um, vouch for this, but it's been the same thing for years upon years of us saying, please add alt text to your images. Please make things, please make the contrast better on that text. You know, please make your web page screen reader accessible, keyboard accessible. So ha- has there been change? Yes, there's been slight change. There's been a shift in the mindset, I believe, especially lately, probably the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years, where
Yeah.
more people are willing, that I've come across, they're more willing to learn about accessibility because they want to make a change. So
Right.
there is a little change, but then again, that's the crusty old curmudgeon in me saying nothing's changed. Get off my lawn, I'm glad people are asking questions. I'm glad people want to make things accessible. I'm glad. I am ecstatic people want to learn about accessibility, and that's people like Anna Cook, you know Marcy Sutton, Sarah Soydan, and the list goes on and on and on, with the people that are always constantly out there talking about accessibility. I don't talk about accessibility all the time because I'm at that point where it's just the I don't want to say the fire is dying, but I my time has run its course just about. And like I said, I'll always advocate, but um plus I talk about lobsters a lot because lobster is my favorite food. I can't help it. I tweet about it a lot. Um but while there has been a slight change, it's not the change that I was hoping for. More change. I was hoping for less arguments about, is HTML a programming language, or is this all these just unnecessary quizzes on Twitter about what's better than what. Can't we all just find a commonality, a common ground where we're going to use what we want to use because we like to use it, and people respect that, right? So that said, I'm kind of going off road a little bit with accessibility. It's been, for me, going out there, doing the talks, having people come up to me after those talks, right? And saying, I want to learn more about accessibility. How do I learn more about accessibility? Thank you for your talk. It was terrific. I'm going to go learn about accessibility. So um, there is change. Maybe the change will be bigger and better as time goes on. That maybe, I hope so. I really hope so, because there's still a lot out there that needs to be improved for people with disabilities.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've been in accessibility for, geez, 10 years now. And when you said the last 2 years, I thought that was really interesting because I noticed, the soapbox that you have to get on when it comes to advocating for people with disabilities. People don't really, it makes them uncomfortable. They don't really care. They're not really trying to do anything because it doesn't affect them, which is, I get it. But I noticed it was probably around something happened in the pandemic. We went into a vortex where everyone started thinking about everything in different
Yeah.
ways. And I think more people were, I don't know if it's like being online, people were more chronically online, getting different information and then getting into different things, and things like civil rights and just like all those things, humanity and doing better, I think really put a spotlight on accessibility, particularly. And I'm just, wondering myself, you have twice as much time as me, right? You have a little bit more depth to see like where things have been going in history for this specific space. But I'm just like, I hope that this is not a blip and that this is the start of something and it's not just like, a fad. I'm like, let's make
Yeah.
accessibility cool. It is cool. It's a cool
Yeah.
thing to talk about and a cool thing to implement. And I really do hope that it continues to go that way.
Yeah. Well, people with disabilities benefited because they got to work from home. They didn't have to make that trek to the office and have to face all these barriers they face every day. They got to work from home and it improved life for them, and it improved their work. They were, people were able to do more work and more efficiently and better work. And that I see that as a bonus. But and when I see companies that are like, "Oh, we need to go back in the office," why?
Boo.
Because you have a lease that you can't pay for.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna round this out with some questions about certifications, and then I'm gonna let you end it with whatever you want to end it with. For my people in the chat who are still hanging out with us, thank you for hanging out with us. Please start putting in any questions that you may have in the chat because we're gonna go through them and answer all of your questions. So if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to talk about, please put it in the chat. So I'm going to ask you, we talked a little bit about this last time as well. What do you think about, what are some certifications you believe would be helpful for people who either want to get into the field or learn more? And what do you think about the CPAC and the IAP? Because the CPAC is one of those that a lot of us are kind of working towards because unfortunately it is something that employers do like to see if you don't have like 20 years of experience, for example. Loaded question.
Well, they actually do like seeing letters after people's names after 20 years.
Oh,
I
yes, they do. You can talk about that too.
as as a sidebar, I've been passed over for a position, right? I've got all the time I've logged in, and they were like, "Oh, we need somebody with a little bit more experience." I'm like, "Are you
It's
kidding
insane.
me?" Okay.
I
So,
would, I
um,
would combust. I would just like, I would disappear into nothing. It's like, what do you mean?
yeah, yeah. As far as certifications go, that I guess depends upon how you feel as a person about the value of those certifications. So you have CPAC and you have WAS. You also have certifications for um, uh, documents, PDF, and I can't remember which one that was, but it's on the IAAP site. Um, is Are they worth people getting? Yes, they are. That gives you that knowledge, definitely. For me, I mean, I could go out and get the certification, but At this point, it's pretty meaningless. Um, the only problem I have, and there's still some residual um, bad feeling about when the IAAP um, allowed a overlay vendor to um, be at one of their events. I think it might have been even sponsor it. So, I mean, that still leaves a sour taste in my mouth, definitely.
Right. And overlays, for those who are unaware, are a little piece of code that some of these big companies claim will make your sites completely compliant with just like, a little line of code that'll overlay your stuff with accessibility and then make it compliant. And then you pay them like, I don't know, $1,000 a month or something stupid, or $100. I don't know. It's something ridiculous where you're just like, what the F?
Right.
And it doesn't make your sites accessible at all. It just kind of, I don't want to say it makes it worse, but a lot of times it does make it worse. And
It
there
does.
is a petition going around where like basically everyone in accessibility has signed it who's a professional, saying like overlays are not good. But yeah, so that's what that is. So we hate that for that. Don't like that.
Yeah. Um, and the I don't want to go off on overlay companies too much, but they're just shady and it's snake oil. But um, certifications, if it's worth your time and you feel like there's value to it, go for it. Get your CPAC, get your WAS, get the CPWA, which is both CPAC and WAS, and then go for the there's two others I believe on the IAAP site, so go for those too. It's
The
PDF remediation,
documents,
I
yeah.
believe. Yeah. So, and then there's the trusted tester certification for Section 508,
A
and you're
beast.
well aware of that.
It's free. That one is
Yeah.
free, at least.
Yep.
It's harder than the CPAC, I am sure.
Yes.
100%, 1000%. However, the CPAC is like $600. So,
Yes.
yeah, that's the
And
barrier that I don't like about it. That's not accessible in my opinion, but I get
no.
why, they got to do what they got to do. I feel it.
Well, you know, it doesn't have to be that expensive. I feel. Um, Plus, if you fail the CPAC or the WAS or the any other tests they have, you need to go back and you need to pay for it again, I believe, and retake the test. Or they might have one retake for free, but after that, you would have to go back and pay for it. There needs to be more than one body out there that is official as far as being able to give out the certification for those. It can't be just one. It shouldn't be just one organization like the IAAP. There should be somewhere that says, hey, we offer it too. It's the same thing, and you can take it for $50 and you can retake it 3 times for free. And then after that, then you have to pay another $50. Make it more affordable, make it worth the time for people to take it. And
Right.
then, people look at that $600 and say, I can't do this. And that's when I say,
That's
okay,
what I said.
here's Marcy's course. Here's this.
How much is her
Um,
course?
Hers is, let me look that up.
I am curious. While you look that up, Andy said the trusted tester course materials helped give me a solid wcag testing framework as opposed to reading the language of each wcag success criteria and trying to make sense of it all. And straight up, I don't know if I believe in certifications. I just do them because I have to. However, when it comes to the trusted tester certification, I am a avid, like, I think everyone, if you're serious and you're trying to make this a career, this will only help you be that much more of a, like, wizard when it comes to knowing
Mhm.
about the wcag and how to test and all the little nitty gritty tiny stuff. Because I thought that I was a professional and that I was like a pro, but I did the DHS trust tester and I was like, geez.
Yeah. Oh, I've been doing the practice exams off and on, and yeah, that's I'm sitting there going, oh,
I
jeez.
know, it's crazy. Even if you're a professional, you've been doing this for
Yep.
years. Because the people I work with, where I was like the first one to get it done, but they're still working on it, and they've been doing it much longer than me, and they're all
Yep.
like, it's a tricky one, and it's not accessible, and they tell you it's not accessible. We're not even gonna get into that. We don't have enough time. But anyways, um,
So Marcy's course is 3 tiers. The bottom tier is $95 for the foundation tier. The core tier is $215, and the professional tier, which I bought, was $495. So, and you have access to those for forever. It doesn't go away. So, I highly suggest, if you have the money, even for the bottom tier, go for it. Take that course. Marcy's great. She'll answer any questions that you may have. She's I believe one of the admins on the accessibility Slack. I think she might have even started that group, come to think of it. But um,
Emma said, "Wait for Black Friday." She got Marcy's full course for
I
$299.
I did that. I kind of fibbed there. I did get it for $299. I got it on the Black Friday last year too. So,
Nice.
um, but yeah, it's a great course. But as far as certification, do what you feel benefits you.
Right.
If you think those letters next to your name is going to make a difference, go for it.
All right. We do have a couple questions on that subject, but before we both answer some of these questions, do you want to end with a last piece of advice? The one thing you want people to walk away from this talk knowing, or anything that you didn't talk about before?
Make things accessible. Remember the people on the other side of the glass. To stay grounded, ask yourself every day, who do you want to exclude? Hopefully, it's nobody. Um, Ask me any questions that you may have. If you reach out to me, I'm happy to answer those questions. Um, Even if they're about lobster, I'll be happy to answer
Especially if
those
they're about
questions.
lobster.
Yeah, lobster rolls. I love lobster rolls. I'm from Maine originally, so that's why. I even have the lobster tattoo right here.
Oh, a.
So, and advocate if you enjoy accessibility, working in accessibility, and you like to advocate, love to advocate, shout from the mountaintops. You know, educate people. Um, there used to be a time where it was the shame game. Shame on you. This wasn't accessible. Blah blah blah. You see that a lot, but those are from the grumpy old men in accessibility. It still happens. I do it on occasion,
You
especially
do.
when there's placeholders with URLs in them.
You get kind of
um,
grumpy, Todd. Sometimes I get
I
scared.
do. I do.
I'm
I
like,
get
oh my
grumpy
God.
now. I make T-shirts on Cotton Bureau. Um,
Oh yeah, please put your link in there. I'm gonna buy a t-shirt.
all right, I will put that in there. But yeah, just make things accessible. Remember the people on the other side of the glass. Ask yourself every morning to stay grounded. Who do I want to exclude today? Hopefully nobody. And advocate, advocate, advocate. And yeah, it, just ask questions if you have them. I'm happy to answer those questions. And here is the link to all my shirts.
And then go ahead and put your Twitter in there too, so that they can find you in case they want to reach out to you. I'll also have Todd's Twitter in my Google Doc that I send at some point. But let's get into some questions. And I will answer some of these and Todd will answer some of these. So the first question that I saw was from Karina Merg. They asked, do all certifications or exams require one to already be in the field of accessibility? The answer to that is, in general, no. All of them you can take in general, right? They all have bodies of knowledge or study material or some way. For example, the DHS Trusted Tester can get you from 0 to hero because it's such a robust process. The IAAP CPAC, which is the Certified Professionals of Accessibility. I always forget what it stands for. Certified Professionals of Accessibility certification or something like that. That one you can also take without being in the field of accessibility. They have a body of knowledge as well. It's 100 and something pages. That's what we'll be doing during our study group, going through those 100 pages together and learning. The WAS, which is the Web Accessibility Specialist, that one you do need to be in the field of accessibility. They want specifically 3 years of experience before you sit for that, and you're able to get those credentials. However, they do also have a body of knowledge. It's about 42 pages, and I've enrolled in a deck course that goes through web accessibility engineering principles. So for our study group, we'll be going through the WAS, even though I only have like a year of experience. I feel like my experience in accessibility, that was like, it wasn't digital accessibility, so that's why I'm sure I don't qualify, but I'm still going to study for it and probably attempt to finesse my way into sitting for it. We'll see. But first I'm going to do the CPAC. Either way, we're all learning that material together. So that's the only one where you really need some of that extra, where you need to be a professional already. Did I catch everything?
It helps to have a basic understanding.
Yes.
I think
at the very
when
least,
you have a basic understanding of digital accessibility, that will propel you through these exams and certifications just a little bit faster. So it does help to have a base, fundamental understanding of accessibility. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Right. Actually, for all the ones that I just said, you must have a base. Like, I can't imagine just like rolling over and being like, I'm going to study for the CPAC or the DHS. This is not going to happen. You're going to be so overwhelmed and like, what am I doing? So things like the resources that we talked about earlier, which is like literally just go to my Twitter, look at those pinned videos, and that will, when I tell you, you will learn the basic things that you need to know to get started. Like that's literally that. And then you have things like Google asking people, doing your own research. And then something that I talk about a lot, which is 100 days of Alley. So just tweeting every day for 100 days, one of the guidelines, and then learning on your own kind of like the base levels, doing that edX course, Intro to Web Accessibility. Perfect course to start with before you start doing all those other ones, because we're assuming if you want a certification that you want to work in web accessibility and that you know what it is enough to say that you want to work in it, right? So let's go on to the next question, which is, for anyone trying to enter the field, which one would be a good to start with and to show companies that you have a solid understanding of accessibility? Better question, having the certification, would it help when applying for jobs?
CPAC.
Yeah, see, I don't have the CPAC. I think the only reason I easily got a job was because I had some concrete experience, and then the self-studying that I did for like the DHS Trusted Tester that I kind of looked at, in my own self-studying, I would say if you know unfortunately, we talk a lot about like not only knowing the wcag guidelines, but like it's such a big part of like the job that if you know them like the back of your hand, you will at least do better in like the interviews and things like that. So I think the CPAC and the DHS trusted tester are very sought after. So they would be helpful. However, you don't need to have certifications to get a job. You just need to have like you need to be able to show people that you can do the work. So you need to have already audited a website, built a website that's accessible. You need concrete proof if you don't have that. Because even if you do have the certification, they're still going to be like, but do you know the job, right? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And Emma, I just caught out of the corner of my eye telling someone to wait until you're employed.
That's what I did.
For the company to pay for it.
Don't pay for
Definitely
CPAC, y'all. Don't do
make
it.
your boss pay for everything.
Yes. When I didn't have
Do
a
it.
job and I saw that price number, I was like, on God, my one goal is going to be to get a job and ask them, can you pay for this certification? The DHS trusted tester is the one that I put my eggs into the basket of because it was free. Also, It was so robust that it got me a job without getting the DHS. I didn't get the certification until I started working, and on the work time is when I studied for that and on weekends. Yep. So I would say you don't even need the certifications. You just need to be able to be like, I know what they are and I'm studying for them, sir, ma'am, and then mean it. Yeah. Be able to talk about it like you're an expert, which you can do with some time and studying.
So a lot of people that I know with those letters next to their names have done it this way: CPAC and then WAS. So when you have those two, you get your CPWA, which is a certified professional web accessibility certification. And then trusted tester.
Trusted tester is hard. That's the one where everyone's just like...
It requires super focus. I have a folder full of notes. All my notes. Right here. I have printed out practically everything in that, and that folder's around here somewhere.
You're talking about the packet?
The packet, and I printed out everything from every chapter. So I have folders that are like this, 2 inches thick, 3 inches thick. Yeah, so many trees died for the cause, but
that's what it takes though to get through it. Like the practice tests are okay. Let me just tell y'all what the practice test is real quick, and then we're gonna move on. But you're testing 3 different pages. So on the first page, and they all go like this, you're testing 20 different categories. And of the 20 different categories, those categories have like 5 to 8 sections that you have to test for, right? So we're talking about from forms to anything you can think about wcag. You're testing every single one of those things, and then you're still gonna fail even if you like know accessibility like the back of your hand. Like you're still gonna get some things wrong because it's so finely done. So most people have to take the practice test 3 times, and that took me a week. And then you have to take the real test, which is just that again. It's literally the same thing again. Three pages, 20, so like 100 questions times 3 is essentially what it is, and it's like really, really intense. But if you do it, you'll literally know how to do the job, period. I mean, you'll know how to test. You won't know how to code and fix it or anything, but you'll be able to get in a room and talk really confidently. So that's why I like it. All right. Any last words, last questions? And the Tiny Cupcake. Tiny Cupcake said, I heard the practice test sometimes doesn't tell you what you got wrong if you do. Is that true? It does not tell you.
None of them do, I don't think.
Doesn't tell you. The problem with the trusted tester and the way that it tells you what you got wrong is it'll tell you you got it wrong and then give you no indication of like, um, honestly, we're going to have a separate stream on these certifications and talking about them. So we'll save it for that for then, because this is like a whole thing that we have to have a different stream on. Karina Marg asks, what about those alley features that are subjective in a way? Like, would it be helpful to add an area live to summarize, let's say, a round of a number game, or ooh, this is an extreme one. I'm gonna let you answer this one, and this will be our last question.
Um,
And can you repeat it for just in case we have anyone who is blind or using something
so
to.
yeah, the question is, what about those accessibility features that are subjective in a way? Would it be helpful to add an ARIA live to summarize, let's say, a round of a number game to mimic the experience of a sighted user, or just let the user tab through each value? That depends. I guess that would depend upon how you have it set up.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
That is a hard one to answer. As far as the first part of the question about the subjectiveness, I will use of color as one of those very subjective success criteria. That is uh, that would answer that question. Now, give me a second here, and I
Also,
will.
Karina Merg, I would really encourage you to reach out to Todd or any of us. Not me. I don't know about that one for me. I mean, I feel like I could answer that if I understood the question a little bit better. But you can reach out to Todd and ask specific questions if you have some specific questions as well, just to let you know.
So I put in the link to the understanding document for use of color. It's very subjective how to use color when you're trying to convey a link or a important piece of content or even a button UI component. So accessibility is so subjective. Ask 100 accessibility professionals about one thing
And they give you
and
different
whether they would
answers.
fail it or pass it, and you're going to get 100 different answers probably.
Yeah. It's a good
So
question, though. I hope you ask it
yeah,
again so that we can. I'm kind of curious, like what exactly you're asking. So reach out to one of us, DM us. Alrighty,
yep.
my friends. I cannot believe that you guys are still here with us. Thank you so much for hanging out for 2 whole hours and listening about accessibility. It's been so nice learning from Todd. He has so many resources for us and so many gems. The great thing is, Todd is going to be with us for the study group. So if you are here and you're part of the study group, Todd's going to be hanging out sometimes in the chat, and he'll probably also join us as we are like right now, except during that time, we'll literally be studying something random, and Todd will be hooking us up with some information because I am but a little person learning with you. So thank you for joining us. You will have anything you want to say, Todd, before we get out of here?
No, I think I've talked enough.
Oh, also, please don't leave yet because I want to tell you about tomorrow. Tomorrow, I don't know if Emma's still in the chat with us, but Emma Dawson is awesome. She is a full stack engineer. Yep, there she is, Emma Dawson Dev. Emma, please put your Twitter in the chat as well so that people can find you. She will be on tomorrow talking about open source and accessibility. We'll also be talking about our open source project to help people learn more about how to code accessibly and how you can contribute to different projects with accessibility in mind. We are so excited about that, and we are so happy that we had Todd. Thank you so much for joining us, Todd. This was awesome. We will definitely be
Thank you
doing
for
it
having me.
again.
Thank you for having me, and no echo, which was, well, we had a little echo there, I guess, for a little bit, but yeah. No, thank you for having me. It was great to be back.
Yes. Alrighty, my friends. I will see you tomorrow. When will I have an idea about the daytime for the study group? That's a great question. I will actually be putting a poll in the discussion tab at some point. I'm but one person, so I just got to find the time to figure out when I can actually do the study group, but it'll probably be like Thursday at 3 or something like that. 3 p.m. EST, which is when I usually have time to stream as well. So we'll let you guys know about that and do a little poll. I'll see you all tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Time with Emma Dawson. All right. See y'all. See you. All right, y'all. Signing off. Bye.